on in the meeting. Okay,
sounds
so
good.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Sorry about the delay, folks. This is the first time I've ever had any major computer problems this way with the internet. Under land acknowledgement, we would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and the neutral peoples. And can I get a mover and a seconder for the confirmation of the agenda?
Councillor Dalton and Councillor Chartrand.
Okay. That the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated February 1st, 2022 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor?
That's carried.
Okay. Is there any disclosure or pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening?
I see none.
Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
Deputy Mayor Fisher and Councillor Steffler.
Okay, that the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as printed and circulated. That's the regular meeting of January 18th of 2022 and the public meeting hearing. Oh, yeah, that's it. Sorry. All those in favor?
That's carried.
Okay, thank you. Public meetings and hearings. We have a delegation this evening. Chris Lee for the GG Trail Advisory Committee, McNaught Trailhead Proposal. I'll let the CAO take.
So, Mr. Lee, if you would like to go through your presentation, I think our clerk has your presentation and can share her screen and bring it forward as you speak to it. We can't hear you, Chris. No, still nothing.
He was signed in and now he's not.
I can see him on the screen, Councillor Willoughby. It just and it appears he's unmuted. I just can't quite hear him.
Sometimes if you just click the arrow beside your microphone, Chris, you might have different sound options just to make sure you're not connected to some other speaker or microphone.
I guess it's the night of technical difficulties, isn't it?
Not good.
Chris? I'm going to send you an email, Chris, and I'm going to give you my cell phone number. If you call it, I'll put you on speaker on my cell phone. Mayor, if you want to go ahead and maybe proceed with the public meeting, I'll get Chris sorted out in the meantime.
Okay, so under 6.2 for the public meeting, we have a rezoning bylaw amendment. Can I get a mover and a seconder to introduce that, please?
Councillor On and Councillor Deal.
Thank you. All those in favor?
That appears to be carried.
Okay, in fairness, I didn't read it. That the council of the municipality of Huron East adjourn the regular meeting of council at 7:14 p.m. to go into a public meeting to discuss the following zoning bylaw amendment application plan 207, Park Lot 5 and Part Lot 6, Gray Ward, Troy and Tracy Long. And it was carried. Thank you. And can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda for the public meeting?
Councillor Morrison and Councillor Dolan.
That the agenda for the public meeting for zoning amendments be adopted as circulated. All those in favor?
That appears to be carried.
Okay. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for this portion of the meeting?
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I will turn this over either to Brad or whoever's taking this part.
Would be our clerk,
It's
Mr.
Jessica,
Mayor.
yeah. Okay, so the following provisions are contained in Ontario Regulation 54406, Section 5115. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Municipality of Huron East to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Municipality of Huron East to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal to the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. A zoning application was received from Tracy and Troy Long on Plan 207, Park Lot 5 and Part Lot 6 in the Gray Ward, known as 84361 McNabb Line. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to change a portion of the property from R1 residential low density to R42 residential low density special zone. A notice of the public meeting has been circulated to all government agencies and adjoining property owners as provided by the legislation, and no comments were received. So I'm now going to pass this on to Laura Simpson, our planner from Huron County.
Thanks, Jessica. I've had my own internet and video troubles this week, so if mine cuts out, let me know. So hopefully this goes well. I have the PowerPoint to share with council. So hopefully you can see the cover page of the PowerPoint presentation. It might be taking a second to load.
I can see it, Laura.
Thanks. Okay, so yeah, so this is, as Jessica mentioned, zoning amendment application for Tracy and Troy Long. This is file Z10-21 for 84361 McNabb Line. So it's proposing to change the zoning on a portion of the property from R1 to R1-42, a special zone for residential low density. And this property does require a zone change as a condition of approved severance file C44-2021. So council considered this application last year, and it was recommended for approval by Huron East and proceeded as an undisputed severance and approved by the county. And the specific condition was to obtain a rezoning to recognize the existing accessory building on the retained lands of that severance. So the previous severance application proposed to divide the subject property into two residential lots facing, fronting onto McNabb Line. One was containing the existing house, and the other one was a vacant parcel abutting McNabb Line and the river, and was approximately 5 acres in size. So the vacant one was also containing the existing shed on the property. So it didn't have a main structure like an existing residence, but it did contain a shed in the northeastern portion, closer to the front street and the front lot line than the minimum setback required for a main building, which is where the requirement for a zoning amendment came in to effect. Once the severance was approved, the existing shed lost its non-complying status within the minimum setbacks from the yards and closer to the street. So this zoning would recognize that and allow the shed to continue to be on the property. And the property itself is within the Cranbrook settlement area and is designated urban and natural environment. So this next slide is Key Map 10A from Huron East zoning bylaw, showing the portion of the subject property that is subject to the rezoning from R1 to R1-42. This next slide is a 2020 aerial photo of the subject property outlined in orange. The section that has a blue outline was the severed lands of the previous severance C44-21. And there's a red arrow indicating the location of the shed. So you can see it's close up to the road there within the minimum yard setback. So for example, setback from McNabb line would be a 6-meter setback for any structure, and this building is located closer than that, and as well in the front yard rather than a rear or interior side yard for an accessory building. As mentioned, it is designated urban as part of the settlement area of Cranbrook, and severed the existing house onto its own 2-acre lot there, shown to the south. And the retained lands contain the sheds. So this rezoning would address section 3.2.2 of the Huron East zoning bylaw, which specifically is for the setbacks of an accessory structure, and as well section 3.2.5. As this lot would, now that it's been severed from the main house, the shed would be considered the only building, an accessory building, which is in existence prior to a main building, such as a house being constructed on this lot. So the owners of the lot have indicated they plan to proceed with developing it as a residential lot, but for the time being, just the accessory building is the only structure on there. Here is a Google Street View of the existing shed between 2 large mature trees up at McNabb line on the subject lands there. Reviewing this against the policies in the Huron East official plan, it does propose to recognize an existing accessory structure on a residential parcel and also zone for residential uses and urban uses. The existing designation zone will permit the future construction of a single detached dwelling, and something like a shed of this size and nature is considered normal and a permitted use and structure within a residential zone and used property. So it's considered complementary to the existing zoning on the property, as well as the residential nature on either side of this property as well. There is a portion of the subject lands that are designated natural environment closest to the river and within the Maitland Valley floodplain, but the existing shed is outside of these and is not proposed to be considered to have a negative impact on either the natural environment lands, the ability to construct on the rest of the access, nor the abutting properties. I didn't receive any comments from any neighbors, members of the public, or staff with concerns during the circulation of this application. So in order for this condition of the severance to be satisfied and allow the Longs to proceed with finalizing their severance and construct the house on the vacant land, I'm recommending that this is approved and passed at tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Still there, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I am. I'm just looking for sorry, I got the public meeting process here. So at this point, are there any questions or comments from members of council? Again, I can't see my members of council, but
I don't see any hands raised.
okay. Are there any comments or questions from any members of the public if they're in attendance? And I'm not hearing anything. So then my only other question is, does the applicant themselves have any comments or questions that they'd like?
No, nothing from us, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Then at this point, I need a mover and a seconder to close this portion of the public meeting.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Fisher and Councillor Chartrand.
Okay, thank you. That the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendments be closed at 7:24 PM. All those in favor?
And that is carried, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do we have Mr. Lee back or not?
Not at this point in time. I've given him my number. Mr. Lee, I did through the chat give you my number.
He is back in the meeting. He logged out and came back in, so I'm not sure if that fixed his technical problems.
Oh, you're still muted there, Chris. Just try giving me a call on my cell phone. And I'll just put you on speaker and then council can hear you.
There's also a dial-in number in the Zoom link as well, if you have that handy.
Okay, we're not having much luck here at the moment. If Jessica and Chris get something worked out there, then we'll come back to Chris right away. So we should move on to number 8, reports and recommendations of municipal officers. And 8.1 was the Huron East Parkland Reserve Fund. There was a report there that showed how much money has come into the fund and which municipalities have used portions of that fund over the course of the last number of years. Were there any questions or comments from members of council at this time?
Don't appear to be seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. 8.2, which was the tax arrears report. And the thing I notice on there, I know at one time we used to be at 10% or always hovered around that 10% mark. And then the province a couple of times has shortened up the term. And I think it's about half the time of what it used to be. And maybe that's why we're at right around the 5% mark now. I don't know if Paula had any comments to that, to whether she feels a good spot, bad spot.
Yes, I can comment on that. The benchmark has consistently been at the 10%, and I had suspected they would modify that benchmark, as the mayor had alluded to, when they changed the requirement for the tax arrears to be 3 years in arrears. They shortened that period to 2 years in arrears. So at that time, I assumed they would adjust the benchmarking, and they haven't since then. That happened in 2017. So now essentially when a property goes for tender for tax sale arrears, they're essentially 3 years in arrears versus 4 years, because the process is 1 year long. And I feel that we're hovering right around the 5.5% right now. And that I am very comfortable with right now. I am monitoring the arrears closely due to the COVID, because you'll note that the amount of arrears has decreased, but the number of properties in arrears has increased. So that's just telling us that there's more properties in arrears, but for smaller amounts. So is that maybe an outcome of the COVID-19 pandemic? I'm not sure. But again, when we offered the relief for the penalty and interest on tax payments and deferring to a later date for payment, there were very few that contacted me. I think I had 3 properties contact me on that. So I don't think it's a huge issue to date right now.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that response. Are there any other questions of council on that report?
Councillor McClellan has a question.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Alvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I apologize because I wanted to try to get in on that previous report about the Parkland Reserve, if you may, but if someone else has something to finish up with Paula, that's fine as well. I just want to jump in before we get too far away.
No, go ahead. That's all right.
Yeah, I was just wondering, through you to Paula and or to the CEO, was there any thought of raising that $750 to $1,000 per lot created to go into the Parkland Reserve?
You'll note in the report that council had
I
raised.
guess
it from-
my only,
Go ahead, Paula.
from 500 to 750.
Yeah, in 2020, council raised it from 500 to 750. So possibly with what property's doing now in this state with real estate, you may want to consider increasing it because the values have increased.
Certainly, I can add a little bit of context to that too as well. When I was looking at the fees and charges bylaw and doing that review, I gave it some thought, but again, noting the fact that you'd already raised it in 2020, I felt probably taking a break. And then what we'll probably do is try to consider that for 2023.
Thank you.
What might be a good idea, Alvin, if you want to ask for this, is that it may be appropriate to check our neighbors and see what everybody else is charging there. I think we did do an evaluation when we raised it in 2020. And at that time, I think we were at the high end to begin with, and then we went up. But that doesn't mean we still can't raise it more. But I think it'd be good information for council to have, just to know what everybody else is charging for those properties.
Yeah, I just thought with the atmosphere it is out there, much to what Paula mentioned, just thought it might be a good idea to jump onto it. And I mean, this money goes to good uses in here in East as well. So, but anyway, I can accept that review like in years to come as well. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions either under the Huron East Parkland Reserve or the tax arrears report?
Not seeing any, Mr. Mayor. And I
Okay,
do
we'll go to
believe we might.
8.3. Sorry,
Mr. Mayor?
go ahead.
Yeah, we might actually
Yeah.
have Mr. Lee, I believe, on phone. Can you confirm, Chris, that you're on the phone? You're muted right now. Oh, is that you?
There.
Yeah,
Am I there?
Yeah, we can hear you, Chris.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah, I think Jessica will flip you to the slides.
Okay.
And we'll let you walk through your presentation.
Okay, so what I want, I was trying to respect your sort of a limited amount of time here, but I wanted to explain to council the full scope of what's going on with the trail. We are asking to develop a kiosk, a trailhead on the trail, but not everyone is aware of quite the scale and scope of the changes that are going on out there, and the ones that are going to occur in the next few years. So I wanted to just run through as relatively
Enter your meeting.
relatively. Oh geez, I'm getting feed something. So if we go to slide 2. So keep in mind that the trail started out as really a group of enthusiasts, very limited number of people involved, and our goal really was to fill in the gaps along the trail. And over the next few years, we see this becoming, completing the trail and handing it off to organizations that will be able to manage it, sustain it over time, as a complete entity at that point. So that's a transition that's, beginning. We have groups like Mainland Trail Association and the KBTA at the other end that play those roles, and Blythe Greenway Trail, that sort of thing. And just as we're physically fixing things in those gaps, we will fill it in with stewardship groups. So next slide, please. What the trail really brings to the community is forms of wealth, and meaning wealth not just in the sense of income, but in terms of the things that we have and we can enjoy that are around us. Next slide, please. So the forms of wealth that the trail brings to the community are this range that I've listed here: individual, social, intellectual, natural, built wealth, political wealth, cultural, financial wealth. Next slide, please. Individual wealth, and you can go to the next slide, is how it impacts citizens of the. Whoop, we jumped one there. I think, or we're in the brief one. Okay, that's fine. So really, what I'm talking about here with the individual wealth is how it impacts individuals. So in terms of mental health, physical health, simply having some recreational space close to you, or the ability to connect for tourism purposes, that type of thing. Next slide, please. It brings social wealth. The development of the trail is relied very much on building within the community trust and relationships, new networks. The fellow in the bottom left there is with the skid steer, is a retired farmer. Went out and bought that skid steer and graded the whole trail from Blythe to Millbank, actually. The fellow in the upper right is from Blythe. Unfortunately, just passed away recently. But John, for years, was an avid ATVer. Once the trail was in place and he saw what it was about, he actually went out and bought 3 or 4 e-bikes so he could take his whole family out and parked his ATV. So that's the kind of social growth that has come with the trail. Next slide, please. It's very much a mixing pot out there. It shows the buses picking up the bicycles on the top. We get people going out there that catch the bus in Oakville, put their bicycle on the front bumper rack or in the subway, and get off in Guelph and go to Goderich. It's not an infrequent occurrence. I actually bumped into somebody down by the river this summer. They were from Ottawa, had been taking some holidays with family in Mississauga, caught the GO train up to Guelph, and had arrived in Auburn that afternoon. The lady hiking across the Mississauga Bridge had just walked from Guelph, or I should correct that, Elmira, but anyway. It took a few days. There's a tremendous mix of people. They bring a mix of cultures and social structures and all sorts of things to our communities. Next slide. Natural wealth is added to the community and protected. The trail in total has over 900 acres as part of it. Essentially it's a linear parkway or a linear forest. Through iNaturalist and some of the programs we're using, we're engaging people in what is there, understanding the ecosystems that exist there and how to look after them. So it's a great learning tool, a great chance for people to go through ecosystems that otherwise would not have access to. And people with mobility issues have equal access, which is a really unique feature. Next slide, please. We're really recycling something that was already there. There's a legacy of wonderful engineering and construction that we're the beneficiaries of. We're just putting spans across existing footings. That we're using old stations. The rail bed itself is high, well drained. It's a beautiful road bed, really. A bit narrow, but beautiful road bed for 130 odd kilometers. The bottom picture there is actually the abutments. This is a bit of a artist concept of a bridge over the Maitland at Auburn. So this is a bridge that doesn't yet exist. That's a $1.6 million project that we are embarking on. We have the initial engineering done. We can go to the next slide. The trail aligns with and amplifies almost every public policy in a variety of virtually all departments and ministries of the government. You can pick any one you want: economic development, tourism, aging, accessibility. You know, there is a component of what the trail brings that adds and amplifies all of those ministries and public policy in general. Some more than others, but certainly it aligns nicely with virtually every initiative at every level of government, including climate change mitigation. You know, every kilometer traveled on a bicycle is a kilometer not traveled with a car. Once we complete these, knock down these barriers between Blythe and Goderich, for instance, it's down to being a 1 hour bicycle trip. And especially when you start adding in e-bikes and things like that, that may make it even increasingly usable. Once those barriers are fully taken out, you'll be able to do something like actually take a wheelchair from the beach at Goderich to Blythe. Like, it will be fully accessible from, we're basically past Blythe to Milverton, and then there's a few things we got to fix in Perth and a couple of bridges down at Westmont Rose and Wallenstein. But, you know, in the short term, we fix the things in Huron and we're good from the beach to Milverton. Next slide, please. Cultural wealth, you know, we're bringing people's attention to all these wonderful assets we already have around us. You know, the Kissing Bridge is obviously one down in Westmont Rose, but, you know, the Maitland Valley, the approach to Goderich, all the old stations and things along the way. There's certainly places that can be developed and brought into the experience of doing the trail. Next slide, please. Financial wealth absolutely is part of what comes with the trail. In November, we did a silent auction, and the purpose of the silent auction was to profile products from businesses along the trail as Christmas gifts. And we thought we would get 25, maybe 30 businesses participating in that, bed and breakfast and restaurants, that kind of thing. And despite pandemic and everything else going on, we went over 90 businesses participated in that. So the uptake by small enterprise and seeing the opportunity when these people show up on the trail has been terrific and certainly exceeded our expectations. It's not part of our mandate to really develop that, but it's happening regardless. Next slide, please. And I guess I jumped out, I missed one piece there. You're going to hear the word regenerative tourism a lot in the next while as tourism recovers. And of all the things that the trail does, it demonstrates what regenerative tourism is and how it works and what the benefits are. And it does it like right now, like it's impervious to the effects of COVID, effects of weather. It needs relatively little upkeep. It doesn't depreciate. Basically people can use it and leave it better than they found it. It's the opposite of, sort of the traditional tourism concept, of cruise ships and that, those kind of high impact activities. So this is a great example of where the tourism industry is headed. So just to quickly summarize, it's about building wealth in the community and the forms I just outlined. That's a summary of it there. And in the interest of time, let's get to the next slide. And, in total, finishing off all these things that we're working on, it's a once in a generation investment that'll unlock the full potential of Lake Huron route. Lake Huron route is from McNaught, where we're talking about the kiosk, through to the lakeshore. We expect that within 3 years, it'll take to complete this project, roughly $3 million. That's roughly going to be equal to the value of the wealth that would be generated in the items that I've just outlined. If we can go now to the proposal I gave you for the kiosk. What there is at McNaught is, well, I'm just waiting for that, I can explain it. The McNaught used to be a train station. So the right-of-way is, I can't give you the exact dimensions and width, but it's about 5 acres in total. And if you look at the aerial map, if we just scroll to that, you'll see we actually have a, it's all grown in and wooded, but it's a little faint there. But if you look, there's the green line is the trail itself, and the yellow line on the north and the south side are the the right-of-way boundaries. So you see through that whole section where I've got the kiosk marked, we actually have a total of 5 acres. So it's actually really solid, that area that I'm indicating, because that was the siding originally. So there was a station master's house, and a siding in there, and those things are all, they're a bit overgrown, not badly in that white block, but essentially it's more about clearing and a bit of minimal grading and top dressing to create that laneway and the vehicle parking area. There is an existing set of bollards and a kiosk out by the road. The only problem with that is that people park on the road, and increasingly there's numbers of people coming there. And the other is that there's no signage to indicate that the trail is there, and certainly not that we're in Huron East at that point either. So I saw this as an opportunity to create a trailhead where people who are coming through the trail will have access to a toilet, place they can park to depart from or meet somebody from, that's off the main road, signage out at the front. The roadside sign is actually a recovered sign from or leftover sign from the plowing match. And it's a nice big welcome to Huron East sign that we have a location right at the road. So it'll mark the trailhead for car traffic going by, so they'll become more aware of the trail, and this as a trailhead point. And for users of the trail, the kiosk and then will also receive panels, one with a position map and the whole trail map, and space on for amenities within Huron East that trail users can capitalize on. Whether it's places to stay or eat or whatever may be and whatever may develop, that's what the purpose of the kiosk would be. The kiosk space has been in high demand in other locations. We just opened one up in Milverton, and the local Lions Club actually sold the space on it and sold $20,000 worth on a 4x8 in a matter of, I think, day and a half or something. So again, the local businesses start to see the benefit and buy into this. If we could just scroll up a bit, I can just outline the work involved. Basically, we broke it down into in-kind contribution, some cash, primarily to put a toilet and the kiosk boards in. GG will contribute obviously the space within our lease, the base materials. We've got material we can bring to that site if it's needed, the kiosk, the gates, the wayfinding maps, and the social media are all things that we will basically promote the fact that is there to people across our whole area, which includes 500,000 people in Kitchener-Waterloo. We'll be telling them there's a new trailhead there, the point they can start or finish from. The community futures can provide the sign from the plowing match. That's actually their sign, and they will look after the installation costs out at the road. So we can do a really good presentation of Huron East and welcome to Huron East as part of that roadside presentation. So yeah, that's if there's questions around this, I guess I can address those.
Okay, can council hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I logged in on my phone just so I had good sound. Are there any questions from members of council to Mr. Lee?
Deputy Mayor Fisher.
Thank you, Brad. To Chris, please help me with some geography here, Chris. How do I get to this kiosk from Seaforth?
Go to Dublin, go north on Dublin till you come to the T. Turn left, turn right, and that's McNaught line. And you'll go about 500 meters, and that's the trail.
500 meters west
North.
or north?
Yeah, just north of Blythe
You're
line.
going- Yeah. You're halfway between Walton Road and Blythe Road, Blythe line.
Okay. And how far is this from Walton? You're not duplicating something that's available in Walton, are you?
No, in fact, you're almost centered between Moncton and Walton. It's actually a perfect point to put a kiosk because you just need that break. I think we're talking about 10 kilometers to Walton and about, I'm just pulling this out of thin air right now, but I think we're about 12 kilometers to Moncton. It's not quite centered, but it's very close.
So it's a good place for a pit stop, is what you're saying.
It's actually a perfect spot, and proximity to McNaught line, which is quite heavily traveled. Like if you're ever out there, it's quite amazing the amount of traffic there is. So, like I say, it's going to attract eyeballs to the fact that there is a trailhead there. It's going to get the parking off of the road, because right now I was up there this summer. There would be some days there was 4 or 5 cars parked on the side of the road there.
I think Councillor Steffler, then Councillor Wilby, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Chris, that parking is a real problem on that county road. Like I agree with you, and I think that it is a really good idea to have it, because it's basically halfway from Moncton to Walton, and to see all the cars parked on the side of the road, and then go up to Walton and see all the cars parked there. I think it's a definite need.
Yeah, I mean, what we would end up with will look a lot like what we got at Walton, except there'd be more trees around it.
Councillor Wilby, Mayor.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead.
welcome, Chris. I'm supporting you in this, but I do have some concerns, like close to me on McCall line. I was wondering if there could be stops, no parking signs on the side roads added in, because it makes it difficult for big machinery to get down. When the tourists, when they come, and we're glad to have them, we have to be really careful because they're parking right on the road. So that's my one concern. But other than that, yes, many people have asked me about washrooms and that sort of thing, and where they can eat, and it's very well used. So you did call me about this, and I am supporting you. But there are a few little itty bitty things that could be fixed up.
Well, absolutely agreed. As I say, the actual stewardship of the trail is sort of a work in progress, and I'll be the first to admit that. But it's an exciting project that's moving rapidly, and it's remarkable to see all these people coming through the area, and I think there's opportunity here to tell a bit of a story about Huron East on their way through, and provide a bit of a welcome.
And I support the sign too. I think that's great. Brad, our CAO has mentioned that we need more signage in Huron East, so you were lucky to get that.
Mm.
So then we have Councillor Dalton, I believe, has a question.
Go ahead, Councillor Dalton.
I think I'm not muted. Am I on?
No,
Yep.
we can hear you.
Is it working?
Yes?
Yeah.
Hello? Okay, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I kind of agree with Councillor Willoughby that I think it's a good thing for more parking, and I can attest to being on those roads and seeing the amount of cars that do park, and McNaught line happens to be one of the busy spots, so I kind of agree that we should have some kind of parking available to keep them off the side of the road, and I like the idea of the sign welcoming them to Huron East. So just a comment that I agree with what they're looking at in that area.
Are there
Just
any
a-
other questions? Council?
Just a question from staff here, Mr. Mayor.
Go
I
ahead.
know Mr. Lee is asking for gravel, which is classified as in his proposal as in kind. I just want council to be aware of that would not be an in kind piece for us because it's a cost to the municipality. Certainly in terms of our staff and our equipment that we own, we can classify that as in kind. But if it's actual gravel, physical gravel, that would have to be a cost. We'd have to carry that somewhere in the budget. So I just want council to be aware of that would be presumably in addition to the 6,500 that he's asking as a cash donation. And then I believe Deputy Mayor Fisher has a question.
All right, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor and Brad. Chris, this accessible washroom, will it be a purchase or a rental for the season?
I budgeted in there, now some things have changed since, but I budgeted to build or purchase. So it would be a permanent, not a rental. Now rental would be an option, and that may be a way of sort of cutting the total capital down.
This will be one of these blue jobs, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, I guess.
Porta
Yep.
potty, whatever.
Yeah, although if you go for the accessible one, they're sort of a double wide type. My personal, I was hoping that we could do a composting one. Like I say, it would be permanent and wouldn't require service. Because we hold the land there, that's a permissible use for under our lease. So.
Okay. Who's going to do the maintenance on it?
Well, the maintenance would be minimal, other than some cleaning. There is one comparable down by the Maitland River that I've been keeping an eye on, and it really is. Trail users are pretty conscientious, and I have yet to see it actually get dirty, and they pretty much just put toilet paper in it.
It's not a twice a day thing with COVID?
Oh no, it's it's something the locals, whoever we end up with a stewardship group covering that area, could look after it.
But that's okay. That's yet to be okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris. So it's the mayor here, and just to comment, I certainly think there's some interesting ideas here. I guess the question is, and even though you've listed a lot of stuff as in kind, it's a $20,000 hit to the Huron East budget. And then if we do put more stop signs up on, or not stop signs, but no parking signs on the side road, that's certainly just going to be 100% cost to Huron East, because that would be Huron East's responsibility to put no parking signs up for sure. I think I remember when the whole G2G thing started, that once the original funding was got, that it wasn't going to be municipal responsibility to pay into it. And although I like the idea of the fact that you're trying to market areas of Huron East, when you're that far from the urban centers, will the businesses basically recoup what the municipality is paying?
I mean, that's not for me to say. I can give you, well, you know, the examples along the trail of what's going on, and other examples, you know, of other trails. You know, if people go through here in East and they don't even know where they are and they don't know what's available, I'm pretty sure you won't get any benefit. But, you know, if you identify where you are, make it a place to visit and provide amenities, you know, you're going to get something. I mean, I know people stay over in Brussels already, and I know Paul Nickel and his wife have provided, you know, travel services back and forth. His comment was in 2020, I think, was if it hadn't been for trail users, they wouldn't have had anybody in their accommodations. So, I mean, that's just an example. That was, you know, in a situation where the trail was going through sort of adapting to COVID protocols and without any advertising, and, you know, we were still under construction. So, you know, I laid out the scenario of where we're going with the trail to give you a chance to be a bit preemptive about the number of people who will be using the trail, because it's basically gone from nothing. When I put a trail camera out on the Blythe to Walton section in September, I was counting 100 plus up to 150 people in a day, mostly cyclists. Only about a third of them would appear to be local or doing a, you know, back and forth trip. So that was 2/3, roughly 100 some days were going one way, appeared to be going somewhere. You know, if Huron East wants to sort of tap into that, no doubt, you know, there's something to be had. If you want to make sure they don't know where they are and they just keep going, I guess you can do that too. You know, really, I just see this is your call. It's an opportunity for the municipality.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from members of council at this time?
I think Councillor Steffler and Deputy Mayor Fisher.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I know my nephew and his wife from Stratford just did the trail from end to end twice, and they've got nothing bad to say about it. And I know a lot of their friends from Stratford now are going to be using the trail. So I think the trail is a real good thing for not only Huron East, but Huron County. We're bringing a lot of people into the county this way.
Thanks, Joe. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I had something to the same effect. We were at the restaurant down at the beach in Godrich. It'd be 3 years ago now, and we were coming out after having lunch, and there was 21 cyclists pulled in there, and they had been on a 2-day trip to tour the G2G trail. And if you multiply 21 times 3 meals a day times accommodation, et cetera, it is a definite revenue generator, and I'm for this. And hopefully we can get as much signage, et cetera, telling people it's only X number of kilometers to Brussels, and you can get this and that, and the same with Seaforth, and you can get this and that. I think it's a positive thing, like Joe said, positive for Huron County, and it can be very positive for Huron East if we use it to our advantage at this spot and at Walton. Thank you.
Councillor Chartrand had his hand up as well, Deputy Mayor or Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Ray.
Yes, first of all, Chris, I really appreciate all the work you and your team have done over the years. You've done a great job. I've heard nothing but great comments about that trail, and I definitely support the initiative to get signage up there and get Huron East on the map. So thank you for all your work.
Any other questions of members of council? You're slowly coming back on board. I can see half of you now.
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much for your presentation and bringing this information forward and answering all the questions that council members had.
I appreciate the amount of time you gave to this. I know you're short on that. So anyways, thank you. And we'll catch up with everyone later.
Thanks,
All
Chris.
right, take care. Okay, we are down to 8.3, the Chief Building Official Code Amendments and the 2021 year-end building report. Was there any questions on the report that was in the agenda by members of council? Don't see any hands up at the moment. I did have one, I guess, for the CAO. Brad, when I was looking at what the amount was that we brought in for building permits, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe we're allowed a little variance from year to year, but my understanding was this was just supposed to be a cost recovery type program. Now I know from time to time you will have ups and downs, and you can't budget it exactly. Is there any issue when we're bringing in $100,000 more than what we're expensing out of the department?
I would look at it in two ways. One is that, yeah, they had a busy year and there are some variations and I forget what act it's specifically under, but there is a requirement to any sort of excesses over your budget to be contributed to a reserve. And as I understand, speaking with our finance manager, we've kind of maxed that reserve out. So the money generally kind of just rolls over into the general revenue. I think my second point would be to make sure that we monitor that we have the right resources in place. And I think personally, if the patterns continue to go, and I've been monitoring a little bit this, and it's part of the reason why I asked our CBO to bring a report forward, is I think we might have to start thinking about additional resources in that department to be able to make sure that we meet deadlines and timelines. So
yeah, and that's that was, I guess, more my concern at this point was that one, if we're doing that much in building permits, do we have enough staff to actually adequately do the job? And second of all, which might be a bigger problem, is even if we're interested in hiring, are there chief building officials out there to even be hired at this point? Because the other report talking about the problem that the city of Toronto is going through is not a good indicator that there's enough people around to even do the job. So that's just more a comment at this point, and I realize it's not something for us to finalize this evening, but I just wanted to raise the issue. Any other questions of council before I move on?
Not seeing it
Okay.
there. Can you see
All right.
everybody now, Mr. Mayor?
I do have my video back on, and everything seems to be working now at this point.
Oh, good. I'll let you take over then.
Okay. Number 8.4, restrictions of council, the lame duck provisions under the Municipal Act. So Brad has provided a report. I think most of us are quite accustomed to this. It happens every 4 years or 3 years, depending on how long the term happened to be. Are there any questions of members of council about what's in the report? Okay, seeing none at this time. Can I get a mover and a seconder then for the motion? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor On, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East consider a bylaw granting the Chief Administration Officer delegated authority in the event of a lame duck situation for a period as early as August 19th of 2022 to November 15th of 2022. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. 8.5, use of corporate resources during an election. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the motion? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Deputy Mayor, that the Council of Huron East adopt the policy regarding the use of corporate resources during an election. Comments or questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have a motion for dust control. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the first tender? And then when I read the motion, we'll go to questions if there are any. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Deal, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept the tender HE04 2022 of 552976 Ontario Limited, Cliff Holland, for dust control at a unit price of 308.6 for a total contract price of $243,794 before taxes. Comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Steffler.
This will be for salt brine, right?
I don't know if it's salt brine or beet juice. I'm not sure which it is, Joe.
If I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
yeah, it's for a brine mix, not a beet juice. It's a brine to an equivalent 35% calcium chloride.
Thanks, Barry.
All right. Thanks for that clarification. Are there any other questions of council? This was a big hit to our budget, more than we certainly expected. We expected a 3% increase and it was 12.5%, but there is not much we can do about it. We certainly need to keep the dust down, and not only for safety, but even for farm crops, it certainly makes a big difference if you can keep the dust on the road and not in the field. All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. 8.7 is the first gravel tender. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor Steffler, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept tender HE01 2022 from Mackenzie and Henderson Limited for the loading, weighing, hauling, and spreading of 22,000 ton of M gravel from the Kelly Pit for roads in the North Patrol at a tender price of $62,260 or $70,353.80, including taxes, and that Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept tender they are all one. Accept tender HE02 2022 from Joe Kerr Limited for the supply, crush, loading, weighing, hauling, and spreading of 28,000 ton of M gravel for roads in the North Patrol at a tender price of $315,000 or $355,950, including taxes. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East accept tender HE03 2022 from Lavis Contracting Company for the supply, crushing, loading, weighing, hauling, and spreading of 20,000 ton of M gravel for roads in the South Patrol at the tender price of $210,200 or $237,526, including taxes. Comments or questions for Barry on the gravel tenders? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Barry. Barry, Mackenzie Henderson, is that a new company or history of?
Yeah, if I may, yes, they are a new company. They did haul our central gravel last year. They're working out of the pit up, I haven't got the name, it's up by Lonsborough. They hauled gravel to our central patrol last year. The foremans were happy with the result. I have no doubt that they can carry out this one. This one's just for the hauling and spreading. A pretty aggressive price they put in.
Yeah, I've seen that. So okay, thank you.
Any other questions of members of council at this time? All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. There under 8.8, we have a grant funding update, and I will ask the CAO to bring the information forward.
I just wanted to give council a bit of a heads up. There's been a lot of activity, a good activity at the beginning of the year. We recently just applied, actually as of yesterday or today was the deadline, to a Reconnect Ontario grant application for the Brussels Homecoming. It's the grant application focuses on particular events and festivals that will help Ontarians reconnect again. So very suitable program in terms of that event happening this summer. And so we applied for 31,507. We also recently applied to a Hydro One Building Safe Community Grant for outdoor exercise equipment at the Vanastra Recreation Facility, with a maximum amount of 25,000 being requested. We did, and we're doing a bit of a soft promo at this point in time in terms of the Ontario Trillium Fund grant. We were successful for the Vanastra pool deck and acoustic panels for a total of 31,300. We are working with Ontario Trillium Fund to do some significant recognition, both in terms of media presentation, recognition, and so on. So I'm working with our minister on that, and our local MPP, I should say, on that promotion. And the pool deck in itself actually was completed as of yesterday. We're still working on the acoustic panels, and there's some touch up with the ladders still left to do. And also we had applied, I think Council recall, we applied to 2 grant streams under the Ontario Modernization Grant Intake 3. The first one was a third-party project. So we applied for service review delivery, and an IT service delivery funding. And we received $111,936,000. So that's great news. And that's actually one of the bylaws for the agreements on your agenda tonight. And we also received $189,725 in terms of an implementation grant for digital modernization. And we've included in that our electronic document management system, our record management system, and our asset management planning. So that's some great success there. And let's hope that we're equally successful in the other 2 grants.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Paula, maybe, or Brad, this 300,000 we have received in these 2 grants. Do we have to buy new software? And if so, what will the freight be on that? Do you have any idea, please?
And in terms of the freight, you're meaning the annual cost or the cost just for the?
Both,
yeah.
Both, please.
Maybe Paula has some sense of it. I don't think we've made a specific determination, Deputy Mayor, in terms of exactly what software we'll use and exactly what those costs will be. I think in terms of the application, Paula did get some estimates to be able to give some real numbers, but staff have been in the process probably over the course of the last, I'm going to say probably, well, at least since Jessica's been on board. We've been looking at these documentation systems and what basically trying to evaluate what the best solution would be for us as a municipality that's both cost effective as well as serves our needs and does that. So that's kind of where we are. So I don't have any exact specifics, and we don't have any specifically targeted software at this point.
We can expect to have some new costs, okay?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, are there any other questions from Brad's report? Hey, I want to throw my 2 cents in here. Government, as a rule, moves pretty slow, but I'd like everyone on council to be aware of that. When I got the news from Lisa Thompson about receiving the Trillium grant, I notified the CAO, and the CAO came up with the right idea, as in, because we had to close down because of COVID, that instead of waiting for the normal 1, 2, or 3 month term that it takes for the government to normally get through all their hoops and everything else before an announcement happens, and you're not allowed to do construction ahead of time. But Brad made the suggestion that if there was an opportunity for us to do it when the place was closed, that just made good common sense. I got a hold of Lisa. We had 2 or 3 conversations. Lisa really understood, thought that it was a great idea, and she went to bat for us. And I forget how many days it took, but it only took 3 or 4 days, and Lisa got permission for us to go ahead and start construction before the government was actually ready to announce the actual grant program. So that was really things moving in the right direction, and I think Lisa deserves a lot of credit for that, because that's just good common sense to be able to go ahead and do something like that. So really appreciate her efforts there. Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept all of the municipal officers' reports? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Wilby, that Huron East Council received the following reports of municipal officers as presented. 1, the finance manager, treasurer, deputy clerk. 2, the chief building official. 3, the clerk. And 4, the public works manager. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. I don't see anything listed under correspondence. Unfinished business, municipal drains, we are down to planning. Number 12.1, recommendation of council rezoning bylaw amendment plan 207, part lot 6 and part lot 5, Gray Ward, known as 84-365 McNabb Line, Troy and Tracy Long. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to bring this up? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Morrison. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Huron East has held a public meeting pursuant to Section 34, Paragraph 12 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw 11 of 2022, and whereas no public comments were received on this application, and whereas no agency comments were received on this application, now therefore pursuant to Section 34, Paragraph 18 of the Planning Act 1990, Council concurs with the January 27, 2022 planning report and recommends bylaw 11 of 2022 for approval. Council, you have Laura to yourself. If you have any other further questions, does anybody have anything that they would like clarified from Laura at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Well done, Laura.
Thank you. And Mayor McClellan, before you wrap up planning, I guess I should let council know this is my last council meeting before my maternity leave. I'm off at the end of next week. So Jen Burns will be taking over as the Huron East planner. So I'm working on transitioning files to her. So I guess I'll say take care, everyone. Stay safe in this next year. And I anticipate to be back next February.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, Laura. My daughter actually is due next week also, so maybe we should open up a pool between council and see who goes first.
Congratulations. So I'm closer to March, so I'll take the extra few weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll head out, but take care, everyone, then.
Yeah, thanks, Laura.
That I had the advantage in the pool. All right, we are down to council reports. Are there any council member reports at this time? County council report.
There wasn't very much, was there?
No. Well, we spent an awful lot of time on budget.
Yeah, it's still proposed to be 4.7. We have a budget meeting on February 9th. There's a few people talking about 3% increase. We are also the proud owners of 2 new ambulances that just blew me away, the cost of them. 240,000 each, roughly. I think that was pretty much it.
It was, yeah, because most of the time was spent on budget. There wasn't really a lot of other stuff. And I think the February 9th meeting, for anybody that wants to sign in, it's just a day of budget talk is all it is. If there's things that we need to hash out, we've gone through 2 days of presentations from all the department heads. And so anybody that had any suggestions, we basically put them in what they call the parking lot. And on the 9th, which will be next Wednesday, we'll bring those back. We'll discuss them, see if we're going to add anything or take anything away from the budget. And then shortly after that, the budget should be finalized, and sometime in March, I would imagine is when final approval will happen from County Council. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I do have one comment, and I was going to raise this at County tomorrow also. When I attended the Roma conference, I wasn't able to attend the whole thing, but when I attended, one of the sessions I was at, they talked about a lot of municipalities are inquiring about converting their vehicles to electric vehicles, as many as they can in the municipalities. So you've raised that a number of times, both at Huron East and at Huron County. You're not alone, because it sounds like it's a very common thing across the province. I don't remember who all the panel members were, but they did kind of lay it out as in, as much as there is a desire from municipal government to start getting involved into more green and the electric vehicles, that unfortunately the technology is not there as of yet, other than cars, which they said are certainly acceptable. And if you have a department where you only need a car, a lot of municipalities have ventured into doing some of them. They haven't changed their whole fleets, but they are trying some to see how well they work out. What I found interesting was 2 days after the announcement at Roma, or after this panel had discussion, Ford come out and said next year they were taking their Ford 150 truck, which has been their best-selling vehicle ever, and it's going straight electric. So maybe technology is starting to catch up, but as far as the larger vehicles, such as the ambulances and things like snowplows and stuff like that, they claim that the technology just isn't there yet for the amount of battery storage for the length of drives that they need to take, but it is still being worked on. So it's not dead in the water by any means. Companies want to get there. They just aren't there at this point. At least that was the gist of what the panel brought back to the discussion. I didn't know yet.
I think Godrich has two electric cars for their staff. And right now, that 25 cents a liter for electricity sure as hell looks good when it's $1.50 a pop at the station, eh?
Oh, I agree. Yeah. The unfortunate part is car companies are too smart, though. They charge so much more for the electric vehicle because they're trying to make the profit up front on what you're saving on the gas. So
it'll come.
It's not necessary. So I didn't have anything else at this time. Are there any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars that anybody wanted to bring up? Okay, seeing none. Are there any requests by any members at this time? Okay. Are there any future notices of motion? Okay. Councillor McClellan, Public Advisory Committee.
Yes, I'd like to bring this motion forward tonight. Council has had 2 weeks to digest it. Just wondering if everybody understands this motion and what we're trying to do with it. Council as a whole has no obligation to whatever results come back from this study. It'll be totally up to this council to do with or without whatever they want to do with it. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm assuming you're going to read it at some point in time, Mr. Mayor, but
yeah, so we technically had a mover and a seconder for a notice of motion. Do I have to call for another mover and a seconder, Jessica?
No, you don't. That's the mover would be Councillor McClellan, and I believe it was seconded by Deputy Mayor Fisher. So from that point, you can just debate and go forward on the motion from there.
Okay, so I will read the motion for all of council's benefit at this time. That Council of the Municipality of Huron East establish an arm's length public advisory committee to review council composition and compensation for the 2026-2030 term of council, and that the public advisory committee consists of 5 members of the public selected from electors within the municipality of Huron East, by an application and council appointment process. And further that the resources of the CAO and clerk be made available to the Public Advisory Committee. And further that the Public Advisory Committee include in their consideration public opinion surveys, a review of Huron County municipalities, a review of municipalities of similar size and population outside of Huron County, and a revised municipal committee structure for 2022 to 2026 as approved by council. And further that the Public Advisory Committee make recommendations to council by June 21st of 2022. Comments or questions on the motion as I've read it? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still agree with seconding this, but I'm just wondering if June 21st is enough time. We're probably looking at the end of February or later before we get people. So that's March, April, May, 3 months. I don't know if for 3.5 months, 3 months is enough time. Should we put, I realize it's good to have a timeline on it, but I'm wondering if we need more time, and I'd like some input on that, please.
If I can respond to that, I think that's a fair comment, not knowing what all information this committee will be needing to gather. I guess the bottom line is, as you stated, it's good to have a timeline, but I guess if this committee was getting a lot more information or needing more time than what was listed here, there's absolutely no problem if council wants to grant an extension to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good point.
Councillor Chartres.
Yes, I guess they do have a timeline, because my understanding is that they would like to have this done before the lame duck period starts, in case this council wants to vote on something or hand it over. So they do have kind of a timeline.
Okay. Are there, go ahead, Mr. CAO.
There's probably a little bit of leeway, but I'd like to try to stick to that timeline of the 21st, just to give us some grace period. Obviously we could push it, and obviously we're trying to target a council meeting. So we could push it ultimately into July, but would like to give some time. So I'd like to keep that timeline and drive and make that a goal. Obviously, if we don't achieve it, we'll let council know.
Any other questions of council at this time? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any announcements by any members of council this evening? Seeing none. Information items. Is there anything you would like to point out there, Brad?
Not in particular. I think we'll get into, there's just the Blue Water Recycling Association Board of Directors meeting highlights, and then highlights of the Avon-Maitland District School Board. Nothing specific I want to highlight or raise unless council has questions.
Okay. Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the items? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Dalton, that Huron East Council received the following board and committee meeting minutes as submitted. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Proposal from the G2G Trail Advisory Committee. So I do have a motion here. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor McClellan, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East provide the G2G Rail Trail Advisory Committee $14,000 in cash and in-kind services for the following on the McNaughton Trailhead: equipment and gravel for earthworks, public works staff for installation of gates, kiosks, etc., and $6,500 in cash for accessible toilet and a kiosk board with localized content. That is the motion as was presented I guess I do have a problem just with the way the motion is written, as in, say 14,000 cash and then the rest in kind. But at the end of the day, it's costing the municipality $20,000. There's just no other way to look at it, because if our staff are not working here, then they're working someplace else in the municipality and still costing us the same. Yeah, I was gonna go to you next, Mr. CAO. I do have one question about what we call in kind. And I know we've done in kind for lots of things in the past. And normally they're, if we're given a half a day here, half a day there or something. To me, when you send a public works crew out, like, what do we consider a cost per hour for those employees and or the employee and the equipment when we're doing this in-kind work?
I can answer both those questions. So in our fees and charges bylaw, we do have a schedule there that outlines what our equipment and our staff time is. So they're typically used more as an internal function when we're doing transferring between cost centers, but certainly it's a mechanism to use in terms of what that in-kind contribution would be. Operationally, and I think speaking with Mr. Mills, as well as maybe speaking for him tonight, we both really, if this is something council wants to support, we both have no issues really, particularly with the in-kind. I want to make sure council understands that, and I believe this is the understanding of Mr. Lee, is he's using that $14,000 as a number he's established for both cash and in-kind. So he's putting a value to the in-kind. So it's not 14,000 in cash plus in-kind plus the 6,500. It's 14,000 in a total value from his perspective. Our cost as a municipality beyond our existing budget is the $6,500 plus what I would say is the cost for gravel, which until we get a sense as to the size of that parking lot, how deep we have to go in terms of lifts, I don't know what the cost would be. And so I think, one option I can give to council is if they want to park this and let me bring back a quick report to you, just saying what this specifically means in terms of cost. Because I don't have a number off the top of my head, because I don't have enough information to be able to tell you what the gravel cost would be. So it would be 6,500 plus whatever the cost of that gravel, and I don't have a quantity to be able to give you a cost.
Okay, thank you for that comment. And if I can just clarify something, I thought I read someplace that it did give a number of $1,000. Did it not?
They want 6,500 in cash for the accessible toilet. And then I think he's putting the value.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Councillor Stepler.
Yeah, Brad, I think I remember when the railway station was there and whatnot, and that was a yard and everything. So I don't think there'll be a great deal of digging out to do. It'll be just a matter of getting rid of it and bit of topsoil and putting some gravel in.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I thought we had one time, and maybe it's not an actual thing that we passed, but I thought we kind of had a policy of council that when we got a request, especially if it was going to be for a larger amount and it wasn't something that went through the normal grant process, that the process was always going to be, unless there was a time-sensitive emergency, that the process was going to be to ask staff to bring back a report with comments and recommendations. Is that the way council remembers it? Go ahead, Joe.
I think the way Chris has it laid it out and the way Brad has explained it, there's only $6,500 in cash, and then the added cost of gravel, which I don't think the gravel will be very much.
Go ahead, Councillor Deal.
I think we need to, sorry, I hope you can hear me. I think we need to go back to what you just mentioned, Mr. Mayor, about the grant process. And that it does seem like like that's our whole or most of our grant money right there, all in one fell swoop. And then we have the next group that comes along that would request the same. I think we need a little more time and to get some more numbers on what the costs actually will be.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two comments. A, could we, if we do decide to go with this, could we use our Parkland Reserve money for some of this? So it wouldn't upset our budget too much. And second point is, can we table this then at this point to allow the CEO to come back with a report? Thank you.
Yeah, and if there is a motion to table, the nice part about that is you can put your timeline on it, and then you can ask for it either at the next meeting or the meeting after that, so that it gives staff the appropriate amount of time. It doesn't sound like it's something that they're going to be doing before spring anyways, so I don't think they have to have their answer tomorrow. So is there anybody willing to ask for this to be tabled for the reason of bringing a report back? Moved by Councillor Deal. And second by the Deputy Mayor. Any other comments or questions? So my understanding is the motion will be to table this, and I will ask the CAO for a guesstimate on a time frame. We'll table it to whichever meeting he's suggesting here, and at that point you'll bring back a report with your comments and recommendations. What date would you ask for in the motion, Brad?
I would prefer if we said March 1st, only because I know Mr. Mills is going on a well-deserved vacation, and I'd like him to be present when we have the conversation.
Okay, so that's 1 month from today. Is that acceptable to council? All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. So did we cover both items there, Brad, all in one motion, then the tabling and the report request?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right, good. 15.2, recommendations from the Huron East Personnel Committee on January 21st, or sorry, January 25th. Do you want to discuss that, Brad?
Certainly, I'll save you some voice there. So I did bring a couple reports to the Personnel Committee. The first one was more in regards to council may be aware of the fact that very early on in the year, right after the Christmas break, we had several staff that were either tested positive or were isolating because of a household member. And many of them actually consequently ended up using up all their vacation time and then potentially plus some. In that process and kind of reviewing it, Paula had actually had some information that she extracted from some of the member municipalities of Huron County that indicated that some municipalities were implementing what I guess I call an interim allowance. And so I brought forward that recommendation to the Personnel Committee. They've supported it. We're bringing it forward for council's consideration and support. So it really is just simply saying that we give 5 additional, what we'll call COVID days to our sick time on a temporary basis. And that will only be in place till such time the public health of the province removes that isolation requirement that's currently in place. And the only other piece we added to it, there are some staff, even though they're isolating, or even for that matter, positive with COVID, are still working from home. And so kind of to be fair, some staff can't work from home logistically, or just their work isn't physically able to do at home. And then some staff can choose or choose not to work depending upon how they're feeling in terms of health. So I want to make it sort of a balanced fair. So we thought that simply that those that do work at home during, say, an isolation would get some equivalent time off at some future date, just to give some equal benefit on a fair overall basis. So that's the motion. I can certainly read the motion, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like. Save your voice. Council,
no,
or you want?
No, I can do it. Okay. Did we get them over in a seconder already?
I don't believe you did, no.
Okay, moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Wilby, that council accepts the recommendation from the Personnel Committee to provide a temporary extension of sick time benefits to staff in the amount of 5 days to accommodate requirements for employees to isolate due to COVID-19 symptoms within households as per public health guidelines, and that those employees who are able to work from home and choose to do so during a mandated isolation be permitted to take time off in lieu at a later date within the same year. All those in favor?
I'd like a recorded vote, Your Worship.
Okay.
I have a comment on that too. Mr. and Mrs. Public don't get that same benefit. And I realize you're a municipality, but like, you know, if mom and dad at your house can't go to work, they're not necessarily being paid by their employer. They're getting the time off, true, but they're not being paid for it. And it's unfortunate, but everybody's in the same boat together. So I do not agree with this in any shape, size, or form. If you're working from home for your municipality, you're going to be, you should be paid for that day if you're doing municipal work. Anyways, I understand that. That I agree with, but not being paid if you were just stuck at home because you've tested positive, or you know, you've used your time up. If I use my time up working for somebody on sick days, my employer certainly isn't going to come, no matter what condition it's in, and say, here's another 5 days, Larry, that I'm going to pay you for because you were sick longer than you should have been. That's the only comment I'd make, but I'd like a recorded vote because I am not in favor of this.
Okay, I'll ask the CAO to call out the names since I don't have a list. Well, I could ask each person on the screen, but I think we go through in a certain order.
I have a recorded vote summary pulled up already, so I can go ahead and conduct that then. So we will start with Councillor McGrath. Nay for being against the motion as presented, and yay being in favor of the motion as presented.
Nay.
Councillor McLellan.
Yay.
Councillor On. Yay. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't looking there. Councillor Steffler.
Yay.
Councillor Wilby. I'm sorry, Councillor Wilby.
Yes.
Councillor Chartrand.
Yay.
Councillor Dalton. I'm sorry, Councillor Dalton, you're muted. Is that yay or nay?
It's yay.
That was a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Deal?
Yes.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fisher?
Yes.
Councillor Morrison?
Yay.
And Mayor McLellan?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is 10 in favor and 1 against, so the motion does carry.
The next motion, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to read what it was about.
Yeah, okay. Kind of leading off the same premise, kind of in that same summary that we were looking at in terms of what employees or what municipalities are providing. I noted that some municipalities were allowing sick time. Forget the COVID stuff at this point, just kind of wipe it off your brain for now. So just our existing 10 sick days that staff have, they're allowing staff to carry those over and use those in lieu of the fact that they don't have short-term disability, which is certainly our case. Right now, we give 10 sick days. At the end of the year, if they're not used, they're lost. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. The challenge is we don't have short-term disability. And there's an opportunity here, not certainly right away, but over a period of time with longer term employees to build up a little bit of reserve. So what we're suggesting in here with this motion and what the amendments to the employee manual we're recommending here is that employees be allowed to take any excess sick time and be allowed to roll it over into an accumulated sick time that can be used for short-term disability purposes only. So if they're sick for other reasons beyond something of an extended duration, that's not what it's for. The 10 days is for that purpose. And we also wanted to, and in conversation with the committee, there was conversations about making sure that this could be used for someone who also has to deal with a family member, whether it's a child because they're on an extended sick period and a parent has to stay home. We also talked, so we've included some language there that includes a spouse, common law spouse, parent, parent-in-law, child, stepchild, or a person over whom the employee has legal guardianship. And all these would require some type of evidence, documentation that would support that this is being required. So it wouldn't just be an honor system. And certainly we would police it. Other municipalities have done things like pay out their sick time, either 50% or what's left. I'm not a fan of those, only from a standpoint that it somewhat incentivizes staff not stay home when they're sick, because they're looking at it saying, well, if I stay home, I'm using up one of my days and I won't get paid for that. So I'm going to keep going to work and I'm going to make everybody else at work sick. So I don't like it for that purpose. And I don't like it just being carried over and just, building up over a period of time. That's sort of what the teachers union ran into with a struggle with, is that staff had significant amount of, or employees, teachers had lots of sick time built up and were owed that at the end of the point in time when they retired or whatever it was. And it was a huge liability for the boards. So I'm trying to make this sort of clear that this is purposes for short-term disability coverage only. And we've also included language very specifically that says that it's not a payout upon a person being terminated, retiring, resigning, leaving the municipality. So the language is all there. I think maybe our clerk could bring up the actual language rather than saving our mayor reading it all, but I'll leave that up to Mr. Mayor. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, and I think there's a question from the deputy mayor.
Yes, please, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to Brad. Two things. Employment insurance has sick pay coverage. So do we need to go more than 10 days or whatever it takes to get EI? And also, if somebody banks 60 days or whatever and goes out and blows a knee skiing at Collingwood, are we going to cover them, or is it just going to be work-related injuries? Please.
I think. Sorry.
Yeah, can I respond to this, Brad? And just for the fact that I got to say that both the personnel committee and the administration committee had meetings in the last week and a half. We didn't all start at the same spot, but I mean, really good discussions. And Bob, this was one of the things that came up during the meeting. And so the comment is that, if someone has been diligent, made it to work year after year and banked a number of days, if they're going to be offered an extended period of time and not be able to collect anything else. Now, you can collect unemployment, but again, you can't collect that until a certain amount of time goes by. And I think that's like you got another 2-week waiting period or something like that. And so you can't even take sick pay for those 2 weeks, because then that doesn't count as your waiting period. So this is a way to compensate the employee for that, as long as they've banked the time themselves. Now, if someone uses their sick days every year and doesn't get any banked, then they are on their own if an incident like that happens. But we weren't going to try and distinguish between whether we're calling it an injury or a sickness or an operation. The bottom line is if you've got a note from the doctor that you can't come to work, then we're going to accept that as you should not be at work. And we're not going to point fingers about whether it was your fault or somebody else's, or if it was just a medical problem you had no control over. Because as much as you say it could have been a skiing accident, it could have been a car accident also that was not the employee's fault, and you'd hate to penalize them for that.
Okay, no, that wasn't clear to me at those meetings. Thank you.
Okay, all right, not a problem. Did I get that right, Mr. CAO?
You did perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions, council, at this time? Okay, I can read the whole motion if council wishes. I think it's been well explained. It was in your package. Does council want me to read the motion? Okay, I don't see any request for that. So at this point, I will just ask all in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, motion carries. Thank you. We are down to bylaws, and yeah, just before I get into bylaws, I was really sincere, not only with this, but even the administration committee. We had a great meeting there last week. Councillor McClellan chaired the meeting, did a great job, and we spent a lot of time discussing stuff, and there'll be some recommendations coming forward to council in the future here. But I mean, really appreciate the input we had from all the committee members and the time we took to go through the topics. Thank you. Bylaws. Can I get a mover and a seconder to introduce? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 for 2022.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I think I had that written wrong. It's actually bylaws 11, 12, 13, and 14. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem. So introducing bylaws 11, 12, 13, and 14 for 2022. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 11. Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor McClellan. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 11 for 2022, a bylaw to amend the zoning on Plan 207, Park Lot 5 and Park Lot 6, Gray Ward, be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 12. Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Chartrand, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 12, a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2022 for the municipality of Huron East, be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor, the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. And mover and a seconder for bylaw 13. Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor On, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 13 for 2022, a bylaw to enter into implementation stream of the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3 Transfer Payment Agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Ontario as represented by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. I do believe we do have a closed session. So can I get a mover and a seconder to go into closed? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor Deal. All those in favor? And motion carries. Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 14 for 2022, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I've heard that you've mentioned the fact that you would wonder if municipality might have an interest in partnering with the county to develop some of the property that we have in Vanastra for affordable housing or affordable living accommodations. I can tell you that I have raised that at the county before, And the information was directed to Barbara Hall, who is in charge of that department. I don't think it went very far, but in fairness, that was probably 4 or 5 years that I first raised it, although I've mentioned it a couple of times. It hasn't really got anywhere. So if you want to raise that again at County Council, and unless Council has any concerns about it, or if Council wants to have a discussion about it at a future meeting, I personally see no reason not to enter into a discussion, because before anything would be final, it would have to come back to this council for approval anyways. Didn't know if you had any comments you wanted to add at this point. You are muted, Bob.
How's that?
Yep, you're good.
I'd like to have our council discuss it. So if it could go on the agenda for our next meeting, and all of my fellow councilors have homework now to think about that piece of property and what they would like to see happen to it going forward, and we could have a open discussion at our next meeting. I would prefer to do that before bringing it up at council.
Okay. Councillor Chartrand, did you have a comment also?
Yes, you're right, Mr. Mayor. It's been 4 or 5 years since that was brought forward to the county, and a lot has changed in the last 4 or 5 years with official plans and whatever, and trying to promote high density housing. And I think that would be a perfect spot for a 3 or 4 level potential building. Whether you want to call it geared to income or affordable housing for seniors or something like that. So it may be a good topic to bring back up at County Council.
Yeah, so affordable housing and geared to income are 2 separate things. So affordable housing is exactly what it sounds like. Geared to income is different. So if you have a family that is struggling and they have an income, but it's a minor income, then a portion of their rent, and it's a calculation done by the government, that if a portion of their rent needs to be paid for, whether it's through the province or through the county or whatever, to help them cover their rent charges, but as long as they're still also putting something into the pie, that's how that typically works. So we have a number of housing units in the county that are rent geared to income, and we have a number that are affordable housing, but they are definitely 2 different things. But both of them are needed for sure. So there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that council wanted to bring up before we adjourn? All right, seeing nothing. Sorry about the technical problems at the start there, folks. I'm not sure what happened, but at least it got fixed. And thank you very much for everybody's input. And I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Wilby, that the time now being 9:08 p.m., that the meeting do now adjourn until February 15th of 2022 at 7 p.m. All those in favor? And motion carries. Good night, folks.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.